I am Captain Logan, and this is day 281 of Spawn Year. Today, Captain Cagliostro returned for the first time in a long while. He looked fatigued, defeated, as though he didn't know why he was bothering at all. He knew he had already lost. He said he knew everything I was thinking and everything I had written, being the alleged personification of my rational mind. He appeared so weak and sick, he claimed, because he was dying. Because I had pledged myself to insanity over reason. The more I train with Tiny Adam West, he claimed, the more the fantasy is taking over. The more I'm losing grip with reality. Soon I'll be so immersed in and committed to playing out this bizarre scenario that I will be totally removed from my rational mind. Captain Cagliostro will be no more, and after I have faced Coke's champion, according to Captain Cog, I will become a deranged perversion of the man I once was. He claims there is nothing beyond Day 365 save madness. He once again swore that every character in this place is a representation of a part of my psyche. He somehow summoned Freakadoo, telling me to get used to that manic face. It soon will be my own if I don't finally listen to reason and turn away from my quest. Freakadoo grabbed his scythe, looking at Captain Cog in confusion, but then with approval, as if the reason he hasn't been by in 3 weeks is because he's been looking everywhere for that scythe and only now realized where he had misplaced it. Captain Cog sent him away, and it wasn't long before Tiny Adam West himself appeared, furious at Captain Cog's harassing me. Tiny Adam West told me enough is enough. It's time to choose, once and for all, between him or Captain Cog. Who did I believe? The teensy man in a Batman mask claiming I'd been chosen as his champion in a celestial battle with popular soft drinks? Or the guy who looks like me wearing a flying saucer on my head, claiming this is all in my mind and I was choosing to go crazy by remaining on my selected path? The trouble is, I don't fully believe either of them, but I partly believe both. There is, I think, a grain of truth in both stories. Unquestionably, I fell into a coma, and the forms these characters have taken seem right out of my subconscious mind. But I'm positive there's more to it than that. And that's why I think I still must play out Tiny Adam West's plans for me, regardless of how fantastic this world is. I continue to tell myself I'm doing this because I've learned from what happened with Doomsvins. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that was afraid I really will wake up to a world where Doomsvins has stolen my life from me. Captain Cog was convincing, but not convincing enough. I chose Tiny Adam West. Captain Cog recoiled in intense anger and declared I wasn't fit to retain the title of Captain Logan. "You can't be both," he said, gritting through his teeth. "There's no place for me here. This is Captain Spawn territory." And then he vanished without another word. I have effectively told my rational mind to go to hell in favor of trusting a deal I made months ago with an entity I destroyed that I have no concrete reason to believe is still good. I continue to trust in my instincts and in my friend Dan Torrey. And now, on to today's review. While I must give in to my Dark Master, Covenant has finally found a way to totally circumvent his immortal sacrifice. This is, as I suspected might be coming, the final issue of Spawn the Dark Ages, and it makes that quite evident on the first page, with the narration box dripping with finality. There is a tale told of a man who returned to hell to reclaim his land, his people, and his humanity. Also, the title The End was a pretty big hint too. It's an incredibly simple, truncated sort of finale, smelling suspiciously like perhaps Niles didn't know this was about to get canceled, like his assignment was to wrap up everything in 22 neat pages, no matter how forced and convenient it might be. And the conclusion of the ending itself is so rushed and abrupt that it's almost like Niles didn't really expect anyone was actually reading it. That's not to say it's a wholly unenjoyable or unsatisfying read. Covenant finally gets to fight actual demons from hell that weren't created by incompetent clerics and characters I'm familiar with. After parting ways with Cagliostro, who apologizes for the way he's treated Covenant in a genuinely touching scene at the start, Cog finds the previously established, then unceremoniously dropped for no real reason, Raven, who was with the Ryle boy Covenant saved from the Vikings and some soldiers. It turns out the Beast of Ryle is still around and, according to Raven, has killed the boy and her contingent of soldiers. But then the boy himself shows up, looking particularly pupilless and undead, and reveals in a plot point I suspect was invented retroactively that he was the Beast all along. He transforms into his true form, Vandal. Yes, the monster who will later be known as the silliest and least menacing sounding of all the Flabiac brothers, the Vandalizer. At first I was shocked that was the big reveal. We've been waiting issue after issue to discover the Beast's true identity, and it's Vandalizer? I mean, it's nice it's at least somebody I've heard of, but unless you've read the Violator mini or played Spawn in the Demon's Hand, you just think, oh, he looks sorta like Violator, but less scary and with a beard. But I will admit, even though it comes out of nowhere, I didn't expect Covenant to have to take on all 5 Flabiac brothers at once. Nat Jones creates some pretty gorgeous action panels, including a magnificent pin-up-style 2-page spread of Violator looming over Covenant after filleting him with his fiery breath. But isn't this all stuff a Spawn fan might want to see earlier in the series as part of a grand-scale story arc rather than tacked on in an otherwise uninspired, contrived, and obligatory ending? Of course, bad guys biding their time for no reason is a tried-and-true staple of Spawn comics. But really, why now? Why did the brothers wait until Spawn stole back but didn't reintegrate his necroplasm to punish him for breaking his deal with Bolgi, which is their intent? For that matter, why didn't Bolgi send them hundreds of years ago? And why the subterfuge with the little boy if the other 4 were also just gonna randomly come out of the woodwork at just the right moment? You can't tell me this was the intention of this little boy character all along. So he destroys Ryle, pretends his own parents got killed by Vikings, helps Covenant escape his crucifiers when it turned out they changed their minds anyway. He goes and patiently lives with the Vikings whom he pretended killed his parents, waits for Covenant to rescue him, kills the Viking leader for pretend revenge, and then hangs out with Raven until he decides to be the Beast again and kill everybody in her party but her, just hoping Spawn would show up so he could finally reveal his true identity. Not one part of that makes an iota of anything even remotely resembling sense. He says, did the boy gain your trust? Did he tug at your heart? Do you feel cheated? Yes. Yes, I do. So they fight a lot, Spawn loses an arm, his dead lover's ghost comes to him and says hell can't win if he lets himself die since he's mortal now, so he just lets himself get killed and then he's with her. The end. Seriously, that's how this book ends. I mean, at least he got to save the world from his own necroplasm first. You'd think there'd be a bit more pomp and circumstance about it, and I love how self-aware the narration is, not only telling us what we're supposed to take from this, but totally admitting how lazy and without effort this finale is. It tries to deflect specific criticisms by telling its audience not to think. The narration says that it has no moral, and that it knows it has loose ends tied with a bow. Wow. Thanks for wasting my time then. Niles has successfully rendered his own comic superfluous by calling it not worth thinking about and poorly conceived. I don't know what the point of my critique even is today. This comic knows it's bad. It's not even masquerading as art. We're reading Steve Niles' last paycheck for this series. That's it. There's also an epilogue where Raven picks up the cage with necroplasm, but she's a noble warrior whom I have no reason to assume would be dumb enough to use it, and I know that'll never be paid off anywhere, so it's a pointless tease. Apart from the fun Violator art, I kinda wish I hadn't read this and had been left to my own imagination regarding Covenant's fate, but I seem to have sealed my own fate. Captain Cog wanted me to think ending my existence here was my ticket to happily ever after like Covenant, but it can't be as easy as this rushed and cheap finale. The harder path. In the hopes of returning to the life of Captain Logan, I must embrace the life of Captain Spawn. There is no looking back now. Signed, Captain Spawn.